This is Patito's Gang, and we are so glad to be with you again. Now today, the subject seems a little amusing, but it's not funny. How do you hold to account people who promise nothing at elections? These days, that's almost every Nigerian politician. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm being... This is hyperbole. But think of it. Really think of it. How many of those that have just been elected, do you remember what they said they will do? Besides, I will tar every road, I will, those kinds of impossible promises that... How many of them sat down and said, this is what is possible in 4 years. This is where the revenues will come from. This is how we will apply it. This is what we believe we will achieve within 3 years on this subject, education. That. So, if they promise nothing, how are you going to hold them accountable? Well, there are people wiser than me sitting on this panel, and I hope that they can give answers that a limited brain cannot engage. So, gentlemen.
My quick answer is if nothing is promised, nothing should be expected. I think the larger society will be responsible or guilty of error of decision. If politicians have not promised, then we don't expect anything to come from them. I think the electoral process recognizes the possibility of such happening, and that's why we have the recall process built into the electoral law. If you elect somebody in error and they could not perform to the expectation of the community, there's a process whereby before the end of their tenure in office, you can recall them. These are areas we need to develop capacity of our people, particularly NGOs need to work hard on this window to ensure that we document the activities of our elected officials. If they know or realize that they could be recalled and recalled successfully, then they will live up to expectation. But larger society's responsibility is that if somebody doesn't promise you something positive, then there is no reason such a fellow should have won election in your constituency. You need to live up right to ensure that we get the right people into office. So we should take the first blame. That's my position.
Thank you. And I like what you said, recalled successfully, because I was going to react to you to say, have you ever bothered to check what that process of recall is? It's more like a phantom recall. Because one of the things, if I remember, is that they need the constituents, members of that constituency, all to come out and be verified that they signed the petition to recall this person. In Nigeria, how many people? Nobody could come to be verified. Not enough people. So if this question, while it sounds funny, I think it calls for a deep reflection. What kind of politics and politicians do we need, or should we be voting for? Why would anybody think it's possible that he can get into office, political office, by promising nothing? and still he manages to. And how is it possible that the electorate can elect somebody who has promised to do nothing? So the role of promises, what are the role of promises in an election?
I will tell you in practical terms how this is possible. And it's not a new process. It's been on and off. I don't know which one comes first, chicken or egg, in terms of promising and looking at whatever. Because if a politician comes out and begins to distribute bread and garri, and you take that home, you've taken your dividend up front. If he gets into office and still blind, comes back to come and give you some tokenism and calls it community development. So anytime you see him, you do your rank a day and he throws bills of naira at you. He's already promised you something, you have taken. And if this were not to be a thing that should make all of us cry in this part of the world, it's become a vicious cycle. The narrative at one point in time is take whatever it is that you want to take from them, okay? But try and ask them questions. But these guys, in terms of intellectual capacity to engage, not there. They know the politics and the psychology of the average person there. So why do you need to promise? He's seeing the whole thing as an investment, whereby he's gone to a bank or he's gone to his private resources, taken out a few things and gave it out in such a degrading manner. You've taken it, you've put it in your mouth, and also your mouth cannot now query him. He comes back after 4 years, does exactly the same thing, and then people rush out, and then it becomes an unending drama of the most unhappy occurrence that has happened to our politics and politics. Now, ask me, have we learned anything like the Bourbons of France? In 2023, almost invariably the same thing will still happen. Where do we draw the line? Where, therefore, do we draw the line? The middle class has tried and asked that we need to ask these people, we need to get them to debate and come out with blueprints of what they are going to do. Nothing. Instead, they either go to the Okija shrine to go and swear to whatever it is, and we see it in social media and stuff like that, and we all see it glaringly. We all still go back troop and vote for this kind of characters.
Let me ask you a question. You know, how really easy is it to promise something meaningful in the kind of society that we have? I mean, you want to make a promise that you can live up to, you must have data. We're talking about scientific governance. You must have data. How much of government information do you really know? Or can you verify? Most of the people, of the things we have around, is it not guesswork? Are they not rumors? So really, the way we run this country, the way things are, what really can any meaningful person promise in Nigeria?
You see, part of the problem is that because
so maybe the easier thing to do is to give money and food, because that's the one you can reach.
Because, you know, if you don't promise, then you don't think about what the solutions could be. But the pressure of promising makes you say, wait a minute, what is achievable? It does not have to be necessarily concrete data of X, Y will be equal to ZX or whatever. But look, fundamentally, we have a challenge with education. I think that if so many people live in the urban jungles of our country, there's no way we're going to train enough teachers not to have a huge gap. We're going to leapfrog things. Perhaps we can apply a certain kind of technology to use to facilitate educating people. I mean, I have in my office a tablet that basically a kid standing here can use to improve his numeracy skills, English language skills, and all of that, with occasional guidance from a teacher, and his progress or her progress is being monitored even as far away as in London, the head office of that organization. So we're going to deploy 10,000 of these in this kind of system, hoping to increase numeracy for our young people from X percentage to Y percentage within 2 years. Then you can come out and say to this man, you promised you will increase numeracy skills amongst 8 to 10-year-olds by such. But we see that they are actually less numerate today than they were when you started. So that is a conversation you can have with them.
Prof,
That
I
is
think
true.
there is
But
a confession made by one of the governorship aspirants in the last election. This was on national television. He said they had deployed his campaign team to arrange a rally in one of the senatorial districts of the state. On arrival there, he entered the rostrum. He had not spoken for more than 20 minutes when he got a note from the organizers. The time is against us. Another person is coming to campaign in the next 1 hour. Quickly round up and just tell us what are you leaving for us. That's all. That the voters are more interested in the money you are leaving for them than any electoral promise or to take you to challenge you on what are your intentions for running for office. This is an issue we have to really address.
Yes. And then here we have to talk to the MGOs because it's part of their role to conduct voter education. Most of those voters don't know any better, and that's why they want to get what they can see right now. But anyway, we'll come back to that. Let's take a break. Let the people speak to us, and on our return, we'll take on the nitty-gritty of promises and accountability. This is Potatoes Gang, and we'll be right back.
When the government is saying that way, it will be reduced. The number of people that are just striving to get there.
Elections in Nigeria should be a thing of joy because you look out for the next 4 years to elect people that have promised and are at least been faithful to their promise. But the situation in Nigeria is not the same. It's actually a different ballgame entirely, whereby you see politicians come out to do their usual thing, normal promise, tell you they will build road, they will assist the poor, they will do all sorts. But unfortunately, it's not been the case as have not been so ever since time being. Probably maybe after the time of Chief Awolowo and co, their era is something different. But you know, how do we hope to change things in Nigeria? I think the things Nigerians should understand is that they should start believing that their vote counts. So if with all the inducement, with all vote buying and all sorts, you can still maintain that whoever does not attend to the needs of the society shouldn't be voted for. There are a lot of people that are not even from your constituency, but because they have so-called godfathers, they come to impose them on you. Why should the voters support those people? How many of the voters in Nigeria even know the candidate one-on-one? Believe that your vote count. Whatever happened at the polling unit, whatever happened at the collation center, every time there is an election, just go out and vote your conscience. Vote those that you believe would not promise and fail.
Those people shouldn't have been there in the first place. You know, sometimes we have persons representing a certain constituent or a senatorial district, and some of their people that voted for them or agreed that these people should be representative of their constituent. They do this out of various reasons due to their emotional inclination, either that this person is from their locality or that they can easily get something cheap from them to take care of their immediate needs. But it's not supposed to be so. If you are selecting or electing anybody into office, you need to understand the person's ideology, who the person is, what the person can do. So the truth is, we can't hold those people that never told you what they wanted to do. When they enter there, anything they do, it's your business because you voted for, you allowed them initially when you shouldn't have. So it's a lesson to all. If they get there and decided to embezzle fund or be passive, they don't care about you, you're their constituent, then you learn your lesson. Next election, whenever anybody comes outside to tell you he wants to represent your constituent or your senatorial district or even to be a governor or whatever, ask him who he is. Find out who the person is. Ask him what he wants to do for you. You need to know what he has for you, the plan he has on ground, before you can hold them accountable.
We are back. This is Potatoes Gang, and we are still looking about how to hold accountable people who promise nothing at elections. Now, on a previous episode of this show, I've talked about how South Korea turned around a similar situation. And one of the things that the Electoral Commission in South Korea did, realizing this money bags politics and all of that, was that they should make debates central to their political process. And so if you're going to run for anything, you're going to have a series of debates. You will debate in the classroom, you will debate in the auditorium, you will debate in the town hall, then you will debate on television and all of that. He said, once it became about debates, those who had nothing to offer ran away from the political process. It became people who could think, who could then offer ideas, who continued to participate in politics in South Korea. The second thing is culture can have a deep accountability strain in it. South Korean culture has institutionalized making people account for things, such that I hope you will remember, I like to point to this often. 2 major incidents that involve lives occurred similar times between South Korea and Nigeria. In South Korea, a group of young people from a school were going on an excursion. The boat capsized. Remember the incident? The sense of accountability made the vice principal, who approved the trip, he didn't bring the boat, he was the VP of the school, approved the trip. He committed suicide. The minister resigned. Minister of Transport resigned. The Prime Minister actually, in South Korea, one of the most humiliating things you can do is to do a deep bow. South Prime Minister herself did a deep bow on television. That is, oh, I'm sorry, I'm responsible. Nigeria, about that time, people applying for work in the immigration service were asked to go into centers, stadia across the country, Abuja, everywhere else, Lagos, whatever. And in the stampede, many died. The minister in charge didn't even have the courtesy of saying, I'm sorry, not talk of resigning. So, how do we move a culture to that level of understanding of, this is my fault, even though I didn't do it personally, and quit? It was not always like this in Nigeria. And there's somebody who likes to tell the story of Tai and drive him without a driver's license in Ibadan. It's not that he didn't have one, but police stopped him and he didn't have his driver's license. He felt a deep sense of, such a deep sense of remorse that he resigned the position he had. So, how are we going to move our country in that direction? What role does civil society have in this movement? Rudy here is somebody who has suffered a lot in my hands over the years, because I often harass lawyers and say they don't do enough given their profession. They are central to the rule of law in a country where the rule of law is observed mainly in its breach and all of that. So they founded a group called LIFE, Lawyers Interested in Free and Fair Elections. So what would LIFE people do to pressure the system to have templates for accounting at different levels for the use of public authority?
I think, Prof. Thank you, Prof. I think, Prof. One of the key things about this whole promise or not promising is the role of the voter. So voter education is important because just like the story that we heard about the governor talking about the campaign, similar thing happened also in my village during this last election. Some people were gathered, told that a certain party was going to come and see them, so they were expecting somebody. Then all of a sudden, the rival, one of the other parties, who happens to be, that is his own direct village, saw the people gathered and came to greet them. You understand? So after spending, of course, people didn't tell him that they were expecting anybody. They all hailed him and promised him that they will vote for him. He wasted their time 30 minutes. While that was happening, the main expected people showed up, saw them there and left. He too finished interacting with these guys and left. So the people left alone were very bitter that he has spoiled their chance.
And so that was
in his favor.
Again, I think we have often looked at problems of leadership as leadership from the head, from the top. I also believe we have challenge looking at leadership from the rear. I also know that people generally are averse to people coming to say the truth. I know of a political aspirant who saw a deep gap in education, saw that teachers that were teaching pupils were not up to par. He canvassed a plan to weed out these incompetent teachers. It nearly cost him that election. There was another very vibrant and powerful person that was talking about bringing healthcare to the downtrodden in the state. Postmortem indicated that the people said no, he was just talking, always coming to come and talk grammar and all that kind of stuff, when the other person was giving them agujedi and boli and what have you. So when the led are not reorientated to know that whatever it is that you are taking up front cannot and should not be enough, that you need to pull these people to account. You need to ask them deep questions. Where I live, of which I'm chairman of our association, some politicians came around and they came and no, we are going, and we sat them down. So all this that you are telling us are not true. First of all, tell us where are you going to get the resources? We'll see you now, and then in the next 4 or 5 years, we won't see you again. We are prepared to partner with you. Just pick 1 or 2 things. Are you going to clean our drainage? We will try and make sure we supervise. We don't need your money. Whatever money that you think you are going to give us now is nothing. As a matter of fact, we should gather ourselves together, put money together to now try to, and then make sure that the representation you want to go and do for us, and people in my neighborhood will be listening to this program and they can verify this. Go out there and listen. It's not a threat. If you do not perform, we are going to come out and say you came to us and this is what we agreed and you have not done.
Plenty of work to do, plenty of accounting to make happen. Civil society has a very critical role to play there. Hey, it's not about some people. It's about you, it's about me. Because we are civil society.
It's not about you, we win.
Yep. Okay. Please continue the conversation on our various social media handles, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so on and so forth. You can see it scrolling. And we'll see you next week.